Yeah. Oh, yeah. Got question, Chase has got the facts. Talking NFL numbers, he's got your back. A little chart trend ball, man, he's got it like that. Chasing data by champions. Chasing data applies to everyone. Chasing data, yeah, we're live today. Chasing data for always. Chasing data by champions.
There we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Chasing Data. We are in the top 10 of our power rankings, breaking down every team like we have been doing all off-season long. And today we're at 8 and 7. And number 8, Denver Broncos, as you can see. And we're not even going to do update of the last week's stories. Not much is going on. We're just going to get straight into it this week. Set up here. Let's see. There we go. All right. So what we've done so far is we've gotten all the way to 9, and the Packers is who we talked about last. At number 9, Texans at 10, Tampa Bay at 11. So tonight we're going to do 8 and 7. And without further ado, number 8 is the Denver Broncos. So why are the Broncos number 8? Why do I have them above the Packers? The Packers, Jordan Love has not shown me enough to say that he is going to 100% be able to not turn over the ball like he did so much last season. Denver's defense is better than their offense or Green Bay's offense or defense. I mean, that's the best group out of the 4 for sure. And they have Sean Payton in Denver. Bo Nix may not have a high ceiling, but when you have Sean Payton as your play caller, it definitely raises the floor for sure. So, like I said, Broncos are number 8. Last season, they were 10 and 7, over/under of 9.5 wins this season. They currently have the 11th best odds at plus 2,500 to be the champs this year. They have the 5th best odds to win the AFC at plus 1,300. That's behind the likes of the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, and maybe the Bengals, I believe. The Texans were lower than the Bengals, I want to say. But anyway, so they have the 2nd best odds to win the AFC West at plus 300, which is not far off from what the Chiefs are. Last year, they started 0-2, then they went 3-3. Then they had that 7-4 finish. Remember they blew out the Carson Wentz led Kansas City Chiefs in Week 18. Head coach, like I said earlier, is Sean Payton. The defense, in the last 2 seasons under Sean Payton, I know he's more of the offensive side of the ball, but the defense has gone from 29th to 7th in yards per game. This defense we're going to talk a lot about tonight. Sean Payton's 18-16 in his 2 seasons, and no playoff wins since 2015, which was their Super Bowl win. When you look at this team as overall, last year they were 10th in points per game, which was great, especially in the second half of the season. Bo Nix came around at 24 points per game. Yards per play were low. A-dot of his throws were definitely low. But they were good in the red zone. They were 9th in red zone scoring percentage at 61%. The run game was the problem on the offensive side of the ball. 20th in yards per carry at 4.2. Yards per pass, 24th. I mean, I'm telling you that A-dot was near the bottom of the league. Most of his passes going behind the line of scrimmage. But the offensive line held him up, had the second lowest sack rate last year. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, this is where they excelled, especially in the second half of the season. They were 3rd in points per game for the season, but like I said, in the second half, they were even better, allowing just 19 points per. 5 yards per play, which is 3rd best. They actually had a mediocre 3rd down conversion percentage allowed at 38%, which was 13th. But they had the number 1 red zone scoring defense as far as touchdowns allowed. It was 44% last year. So when push came to shove, they were able to stop teams in the red zone. 2nd best yards per carry allowed at just 4 per tick. The pass a little bit worse, but still great. All right, the offensive coordinator has been there with Sean Payton, Joe Lombardi. That's quote-unquote Joe Lombardi. Defensive coordinator is Vance Joseph. Vance Joseph, this rushing defense overall went from the run D went from 30th 2 years ago to 3rd last year. I mean, I'm telling you, they were just amazing. Amazing. This defense just continued to get better, and the offseason has even improved even more. So let's bring up their depth chart here. All right, so when you're looking at this here, the blue names are the ones that are returning players. Orange are free agents that they signed. The pinkish magenta color are their drafted players, and the teal colors, mostly on the right side of the screen, are their undrafted free agents. Definitely don't want to see those names on the left side of the screen this early in the offseason. So with that said, some of the main additions that they had, starting on the offensive side of the ball, Evan Ingram. Jacksonville Jaguars cut him. I mean, this guy, he had a down year last year, but 2 years ago, one of the top 5 tight ends in the NFL. He was injured last year, played just 9 games, so his stat line doesn't really reflect what he could do. But 2 years ago, he had over 110 receptions, almost 1,000 yards, just 4 touchdowns, but he was the highlight of that offense with Trevor Lawrence 2 years ago. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence was injured last year. Brian Thomas Jr. took over the spotlight in Jacksonville, but they get Evan Ingram, and we know how much Sean Payton loves his tight ends, on a 2-year, $18 million contract. So no Troutman getting the workload this year. They also signed late into the offseason J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins, he is not – I mean, last year was his best year since his rookie year, but that's mostly due to the fact that he was able to stay healthy for the entirety of the season. If he can stay healthy, I mean, it takes a knock to R.J. Harvey, who they took in the 2nd round, but I feel like this is going to be a running back by committee regardless. We saw what they did last year. How much of that was due to the fact that no one really took the run game by the reins and just took over. Javonte Williams was their best runner, and he didn't really do anything. I mean, J.K. Dobbins last year had the 5th highest explosive run rate, which are runs that are 10 yards or more, at 13.8% among running backs with at least 150 carries or more. So, I mean, he did have a little bit of burst. That top-end speed is not really there with the injuries he's had in the past. He also rushed for 115 yards over expected, which is 13th highest mark amongst all running backs, despite missing 4 games last year. So he didn't play the entire season, but he did play more than what he has the prior 2 seasons. The other Chargers running backs combined for minus 77 rush yards over expected. So, I mean, he was definitely the bell cow of that group. That's on the offensive side of the ball. They bring in Trent Sherfield Sr. I mean, he's probably not going to get much play time. I mean, they have wide receivers that are doing some things some young ones for sure. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, I mean, Sam Ehlinger, we're not worried about him. If it gets to him in the season's over. On the defensive side of the ball, like I said, the defense was the better group for this team, and they got even better. They bring in Talanoa Hufanga from San Francisco. If he can be what he was 2 years ago, he had the injury. He was out for the majority of the season last year. But if he could be what he was 2 years ago in San Francisco, especially what we remember him coming through with Robert Saleh and that defense, they get him on a 3-year, $45 million contract. He could just be just like the safety point in the back end of that defense for the Broncos. And if you wanted to pick a spot on this defense that was considered a weakness per se, you could say linebacker. But now they bring in Dre Greenlaw, who, when healthy, I mean, he's playing like a top 6, 8 linebacker, if not better. I mean, when he and Fred Warner were together in San Francisco before he got injured in the Super Bowl, that was the top 1-2 punch as far as linebackers go in the NFL. They bring him in on a 3-year, $35 million contract, which is 9th in average value. And I mean, God, this defense, like I said, the rich just get richer. Bringing him in, I mean, it's going to be great. Stranad, he started to come along later in the season, I feel. But this defense is just – we're going to talk more about it as we go. That's just the additions. But they re-signed DJ Jones, bring him back as the nose tackle on a 3-year, $39 million contract. He was second in run stop win rate amongst nose tackles and had 33 solo tackles last year, which was 15th. But, I mean, there's a solid piece on the inside of this defensive front where there's really no weaknesses. Okay, looking at their draft. In the first round, they go out and, I mean, they surprised me, honestly. When this defense is already so good, I honestly thought I think a lot of people felt that they were going to go wide receiver or running back. Omarion Hampton was mocked to a lot of drafts to them, especially at that pick 20 in 20 to 23 region for Omarion Hampton. But they go defense, and they get another cornerback to pair with Patrick Surtain. I mean, Riley Moss really came into his own last year as CB2, but Jahdae Barron's probably going to come in and take that position. His comp coming into the NFL was Cooper DeJean, who excelled greatly, especially in the Super Bowl. I mean, this guy, his ability to read the quarterback in zone is crazy. I mean, he's one of 7 players to run a sub 4.4 last year at the Combine. He's strong enough to keep the wide receiver from separating, even though he has short arms. He had 5 interceptions last year. And he also is a great run defender, can line up anywhere, primarily outside, but you can put him anywhere. So versatile for sure. I had him as DB2 or cornerback 2 behind Travis Hunter for this draft. In the second round, they go get R.J. Harvey, who I thought was going to be the starting running back, but then they go and sign J.K. Dobbins to really muddy up that backfield. Last year for R.J. Harvey, he was 3rd team AP All-Pro, 1st team All-Big 12. He had 48 total touchdowns, 22 rushing touchdowns. He ranked 6th in all of FBS with almost 1,600 yards on the ground and almost 7 yards per carry. So, I mean, this guy was a stat filler for sure. Started all 12 games last year. I mean, he's productive as you can see with those numbers. I mean, there's some people who believe that he could be a backup is his ceiling, but it's just hard to project a lot of these running backs. You may get one in the first round that's a bust, a la Trent Richardson, and then you may have some who are amazing who go in the 7th round. I mean, it's just you never know. You never know what you're going to get, honestly, with these running backs, in my opinion. 3rd round, they finally get their wide receiver in Pat Bryant. He's a 3-year starter who just kind of his stock has steadily been rising over the last few years. He's a big wide receiver to go alongside Cortland Sutton. They need another big physical wide receiver on the outside. He doesn't really have the vertical threat, but they have other players for that for sure. He lacks things in explosiveness, but what he lacks there, he makes up with like his IQ on the football field and his physicality when running those inside crossers for sure. So going to be interesting where he ends up in this in this offense, we have Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, who was that speed threat, Devon Vele, who came, there's your 7th-round pick last year, who came on strong late in the season. You have Troy Franklin as well, who they brought in with Bo Nix, and now they have Pat Bryant. So they're trying to work some things to see who's going to be these top 3 wide receivers in this wide receiver room. They bring in A.T. Perry, also, who was with the Saints at one point. Also in the 3rd round, let's go back to their draft picks. They go get another defensive player in Savion Jones, defensive end out of LSU. Started all 13 games last year, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. He's a 4-3 player. He fits the NFL mold for sure. He's average as far as bending around the corner to get to the quarterback. I mean, this is what happens. I mean, they add him to this front 4 of Zach Allen, who's greatly underrated. John Franklin Myers, also underrated. Jonathan Cooper, Nick Benito, who came on strong last year rushing the passer. So we're going to see what he can do to add to that front 4. Then they go get Q Robinson in the 4th round. I mean, this defense, it just gets better and better the more you look at it. So let's see, do they have anybody else worth noting? A punter in the 6th round and a tight end. Nothing to really speak on with that. As far as their subtractions go, they lost Cody Barton. That's basically it. Anybody of note? Over an offseason, NFL teams typically see a 25-35% roster turnover rate. Last year, the Denver Broncos led the entire NFL in this department. They had just 14% of their roster turnover, which was the lowest rate. That means 86% of their players and all but one of their starters are coming back. So that's huge as far as growth going into the 2nd season. Strengths of this team. Sean Payton is a strength for the Denver Broncos. His play calling is, it can't be overlooked, can't be spoken highly enough about. This guy, he went from New Orleans where he was a great play caller and ends up in Denver and does the same thing, honestly. The offensive line, they had the lowest quarterback pressure rate allowed in the NFL last year, 24.9%. Had the 3rd fewest sacks allowed at 24. Part of that is Bo Nix's escapability, but mostly this offensive line is solid from left all the way to right. Another strength, let's see. They have Bo Nix. You could say he's a strength. When you get down to the lower teams, they don't have much strength. I wanted to say R.J. Harvey, who had explosive plays on 23% of his carries last year. So that's an offensive playmaker for sure. But all the strengths, or majority of the strengths, are on the defensive side of the ball. And you got to really go full screen for this. The defense is probably the biggest strength as a whole for this team going into 2025. All around, there's no weak spot. The weak spot that you could have argued last year was the linebacker position, and they go out and get Dre Greenlaw, who, when healthy, could be easily a top 10, top 8 linebacker in the NFL. You look at their numbers from last year, they were 1st in EPA per play allowed. They were 1st in EPA per pass allowed. They were 1st in EPA allowed per rush. Sorry, let me back up a little bit. They were 1st in EPA allowed per play. They were 1st in EPA allowed per pass. They were 3rd in EPA allowed per rush. They had the most quarterback pressures in the NFL. They had the most sacks in the NFL. And they had the 3rd highest stuff rate on runs at over 20%. All around, this defense was just amazing. You add that to the fact that they have superstars on this defense, and Patrick Surtain II. I already spoke at him ad nauseum and how good he is. He was targeted on just 10.9% of his coverage snaps last year. The lowest rate among 83 cornerbacks who had 300 or more coverage snaps. He allowed just 306 yards as the nearest defender in 516 coverage snaps. That's 0.6 yards per coverage snap, 2nd fewest among all DBs. This guy's just all around amazing. Did not allow 50 or more receiving yards in any single game, and he's going up against wide receiver 1 every single week. Zach Allen, another defensive superstar who is so underrated for the Denver Broncos and in the NFL altogether. He led all defensive tackles at 67 pressures last year, which tied for the 9th most amongst all pass rushers in the NFL. Most of his success was against the double teams. He had 14 of his 67 pressures in such matchups, which was the 5th most of all players in the NFL. He posted career highs in pressures, double team pressures, quick pressures, defensive stops, run stuffs, and sacks. He had 8.5 sacks last year. This guy is just all around great. So I mean, that's their strengths. We could talk all night about their defense. Weaknesses, deep pass on offense. The run game could be a weakness. They were 14th in EPA per rush. That number's a little skewed due to what Bo Nix could do. They were 21st in success rate on the ground. Last year's leader was Javonte Williams, who had 139 carries for 513 yards, 52 receptions. That's due to that ADOT of Bo Nix in the pass game. But they were 16th overall in rushing, 11th in rushing first downs, and 14th in explosive runs. The thing is, when you think about it, they had maybe one of the best, if not the best, run blocking groups in the NFL. So with that, I feel like they should be even better with their run game because their run block win rate was the best in the NFL at 74.9%. And they have Quinn Miners, Ben Powers, Luke Weidenberg, Mike McGlinchey, Garrett Bowles. All these guys are just amazing. I just don't understand. I mean, I'm hoping R.J. Harvey and J.K. Dobbins can do more in the run game. We're really picking nits as far as weaknesses go with this team. And that showed in rush yards over expected. They were 24th. Okay, when you look at their cap, I mean, we're still talking about the cap here. They have $299 million committed, which is 17th, so right in the middle of the NFL. Their top paying contracts this year are to McGlinchey, Cortland Sutton, Zach Allen, Powers, and John Franklin Myers. They have $15 million in cap space. I mean, who would they go get out of the remaining players? I mean, there's not really anyone. They're not. I mean, I feel like they have the best. They got the best running back out of the group in free agency. There's not anything else that they need that they would go spend money on. I mean, they save that money, and if someone gets hurt, maybe use it then. But let's see. Moving on, dead cap with this team. Is there much dead cap for them? Let's see. Lost my spot here. $33 million dead cap. I forget. They had Russell Wilson. 32 of that goes to him. $33 million is like middle of the pack for teams in the NFL. Looking at their schedule. Let's bring up their schedule here. There we go. All right, so they are right in the middle as far as strength of schedule goes. A little bit over a 50% win rate. They have 5 primetime games this year. So the team last year really bumped that up to this year, 1 international game. Week 1 at home at Tennessee. Week 2 at Indy. 4 of their first 6 games are away. Week 3 at the Chargers. Week 4, Monday Night Football at home versus the Bengals. Week 5 at Philadelphia. Week 6, international game in the UK against the Jets. Week 7, don't have a bye right after that international game. They play the Giants in New York. Week 8, Dallas at home. Week 9, Houston on the road. Week 10, Las Vegas. Divisional game on Thursday Night Football. Week 11, another divisional matchup against KC. Then they have their bye. Finally, in Week 12. Week 13, they travel to Washington for Sunday Night Football. Week 14, at Las Vegas. Week 15, Green Bay at home. Week 16, Jacksonville at home. And then they finish the season with 2 divisional games back-to-back. They play Kansas City in Week 17, Christmas game, Thursday Night Football, and then at home versus the Chargers. This team, we're going to talk about their win totals and what I expect. We could go game by game, but that would be a lot of content there. Also, what I go through and look at is their odds for award races for this season and who their most improved player could be. So MVP, I mean, it's Bo Nix, but he's 14th best odds at plus 3,500. There's no offensive player of the year odds that's worth mentioning. Defensive player of the year is Patrick Surtain at plus 4,000, and part of that is likely due to the fact that he won it last year. Voter fatigue is definitely going to get the best of people. RJ Harvey had the best offensive rookie of the year odds at plus 2,000. It was definitely high, or better odds than that prior to the J.K. Dobbins signing. Jahdae Barron at plus 1,800 on defensive rookie of the year. Sean Payton had plus 1,600 coach of the year odds, which was very surprising to me. I thought it would be much worse odds. But I mean, if he wins this division, he's definitely it's a good bet right there. Most improved player, I would take the run game as a whole, or Bo Nix's ADOT, average depth of target. Those got to improve. Drop-off candidates, I don't know who could drop off. You could argue the defense, just say that they can't replicate the things they did last year, but I don't know that that's really feasible. X factors for this team, I try to avoid the quarterback, but I mean, honestly, it has to be Bo Nix. He has to take that next step for this team to be a Super Bowl contender, I believe. And that's about all they're away from doing, is him being a top 12 quarterback. That takes them to the Super Bowl, 100%. This defense is elite, top 3. And I mean, so it has to be on the offensive side of the ball. Easy as that. Outcomes for this team to finish up the Broncos and move on to our second team. Best case scenario for the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix is a top 12 quarterback. They get literally anything better out of the run game. They have one of the best, if not the best, run blocking offensive lines in the NFL. And now they add the likes of RJ Harvey in the second round, J.K. Dobbins, who's coming off arguably his best season as a professional football player. If this run game can be 15th, 13th, that's amazing for this offense. The defense is probably going to be top 3 at minimum. They have superstars in Patrick Surtain, Zach Allen. They add Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, Jahdae Barron. The rich just get richer. The Chiefs get no better. Maybe they take a step back. We've been waiting for them to take a step back every single year. Patrick Mahomes still holds them in there. The Chargers are not there yet. Their defense definitely takes a step back from where they were last year. They don't have any names on that defense at this point. And then the Broncos are competing for the AFC West. And if you're competing for the AFC West, Bo Nix is a top 12 quarterback. There's a path for them to get to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. On the flip side, worst case scenario for the Denver Broncos is Bo Nix's ADOT is still negative 2 yards per attempt. The run game is no better. The defense can't duplicate or replicate what they did last year. They dropped to, let's say, 7th, 8th. I mean, their floor is definitely top 8. But I still think the wild card is the floor for this team at 9-7. Like, I mean, you look at the schedule, I don't foresee them dropping much further than that. My realistic expectation for the Broncos is Bo Nix is 16th best quarterback or better, 18th, 14th. RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins give them some life in the backfield. Evan Ingram is used so much in this offense and the Sean Payton offense. The defense is somehow better than last year. I mean, they just have so many names and so much depth. And they're actually giving Kansas City a fight for the division for once. It's not KC running away with it like it has been every single year since Patrick Mahomes took over. And this team is very likely finishing at 11-6 or 12-5. I know their over-under is 9.5, but the Raiders are not with them. The Chargers are not with them. They should go at least 3-1, if not 4-0 against those two teams. And then if they split against the Chiefs, you're definitely looking at 11-6 and 12-5. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Denver Broncos in 2025. Take a quick break, and then we will do team number 7.
For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliott Apollo's, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Dew Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
All right, so let's get into the second part of this. So let's change a few things here. Okay. All right, so let's get back to this other screen. Okay. So we are to the top 7 of the NFL. Top 7. We have talked many hours about all these teams. You can go back and watch any of these episodes where I broke down these teams in detail, too much detail sometimes, but or you can listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. All right, team number 7, already been given away. Multitude of hints, the background, the shirt, and the title of the show. But team number 7 are the Washington Commanders. Last season, 12-5, overachieved probably more than any other team in the NFL. I mean, we're talking about is Jaden Daniels even going to be a serviceable NFL quarterback? The offensive line is god-awful. You know, the defense is terrible. Them getting 12 wins, I don't know what their projection was last year. It was probably 6.5 or so. It's just absolutely amazing that they got 12 wins last year. Their over-under this year is 9.5, same as the Broncos. They currently have the 6th best odds to be the champion, though, plus 1,800s. Plus 1,800. I mean, that puts them behind the likes of the Bills, the Lions, the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. That's the 5 teams ahead of them as far as Vegas feels. They have the 3rd best odds to win the conference at plus 900, again behind the Eagles and the Lions. They are plus 205 to win the NFC East, which is 2nd, obviously. The Broncos were plus 300 to win their division, to compare the two. Last season, they got off to such a hot start. They were 7-2, and then they lost 3 straight. Then they won 5 straight to end the season. Jaden Daniels, you know, I mean, he just brought back hope for this franchise, leading them to the most wins that they've had in their franchise since 1991 when they were 14-2. They are back to the old days of people actually believing. They got rid of the owner, and things immediately improved in Washington. They improved their offense by 156 points compared to 2023, and the defense improved by 127 points. So it's all around improvement. I know the defense is not the focal point here, but still a great improvement. Dan Quinn is the head coach going into his 2nd year. It was a questionable hire by a lot of the media. Cliff Kingsbury, another questionable hire by the media. Joe Witt Jr. come in, has done amazing things. But go straight to their depth chart. Additions on this team. Again, if you're just joining, well, we have some red names on here. The red names are the ones that will be starting the season on the injured list. The orange names are the ones that they signed or traded for in the offseason. The pinkish magenta are the draftees, and the teal greenish color are the ones that are undrafted free agents. Not a lot of draft picks on this team, but we're going to get into why that is. We start on the offensive side of the ball. Additions. They go out and get Deebo Samuel. We all knew Deebo Samuel was not going to be playing in San Francisco in 2025. They get him for a 5th rounder. Last year was a down year for him. He had 51 receptions, almost 700 yards, 3 touchdowns, which is serviceable, but not great compared to where he was in years prior. So obviously a down year for Deebo. Surprisingly, he had 6.4 air yards per target. That will go down in Washington. You know, this is 2 teams with them and the Broncos that love to throw at or behind the line of scrimmage. Deebo had 42 carries last year, which was more than what I thought with just for 136 yards. So that's like 3 yards per attempt. The other big name they get in the offseason on the offensive side of the ball is Laramie Tunsil. They traded, their third-round pick, I want to say, to the Texans for Tunsil. I believe the Texans were trying to get ahead of him trying to get a new contract in the next, 2 years, I believe he's due for a contract, especially when they're going to have to pay C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, everybody on that defensive side of the ball. We're just hoping, if you're a Commanders fan, that Laramie Tunsil has less penalties this year. But we'll see. We're going to talk about him more in a moment. They bring in Nate Herbig for some depth on that offensive line. Sam Cosmi's going to be hurt to start the season. But when you look at the defensive side of the ball, they added quite a few names, especially as the defense required more help versus the offensive side of the ball. Javon Kinlaw, they gave him a 3-year, $45 million contract. I mean, he had 40 tackles. He was 38th in pressures, 23rd in sacks, 15th in defensive tackle pass rush win rate. So, I mean, nothing to really write home about. They get Jonathan Jones in the secondary, Will Harris in the secondary. They had Deatrice Wise from the Patriots. Eddie Goldman comes in, solid addition, especially for depth on this defensive line. They have on this depth chart that Javon Kinlaw will be starting over Jazon Newton. I surely hope not. I hope Johnny Newton is starting on that defensive line. Also bring in Jacob Martin. They re-signed Bobby Wagner, key piece to bring back, especially the leader of this defensive side of the ball, captain for sure. He comes back on a 1-year contract. He was maybe a top 3 linebacker last year, even at the age that he has. He was amazing age that he is. He was amazing in coverage last year, which is wild. They also re-signed Zach Ertz. I forget about Zach Ertz. He comes back on a 1-year, $6 million contract, so they're running it back with the tight end group yet again. Going to their draft class. First round, they go shore up that offensive line and get Josh Connerly out of Oregon. He was my 5th overall offensive lineman. His comp is Broderick Jones, which is not the best comp. Had the fastest 10-yard split. He's very athletic. He has shorter arms, but he could factor into the competition. He could be a starter early on, especially with Sam Cosmi being out. So we'll see what happens. Second round, they go add to that defense with Trey Amos. Had him as CB6. His comp is Christian Benford in Buffalo. He's a physical press corner. He has length. He's just kind of your ideal build, I'd want to say, for a cornerback. Then they go get another wide receiver, Jalen Lane, out of Virginia Tech, get a linebacker out of UCLA, not the linebacker we all wanted out of UCLA. Then they go get a running back in the 7th round out of Arizona. Going back to the depth chart, they cut Jonathan Allen, saved $16 million. They lost Benjamin St. Juste, who was terrible anyways in the secondary, so not a lot lost there. Dante Fowler, who had arguably his best season as a pro in the NFL, is out. He's 31 years old, pass rush specialist. He was 8th in pass rush win rate last year, had 11 sacks, which was a career high. They also lose Olamide Zaccheaus, who had a career year, 45 receptions, 500 yards, 3 touchdowns. They also lose De'Ami Brown, who goes to the Jags in free agency. So a little bit of shuffling around as far as the offense and the defense goes for this team. But they had to make some changes. They overachieved last year, but I still have them as the 7th best team going into 2025. When you look at the strengths of this team, the strength that first and foremost pops out is Jaden Daniels, their first-round pick last year. This guy, he just came out and overachieved more than what anybody and everybody ever thought he would do probably at any point in his career, and he did it in his first season. He was the first rookie quarterback to have multiple playoff games with multiple passing touchdowns, and his 116 passer rating last year was the best by a rookie quarterback ever in the postseason in NFL history. So, just absolutely amazing. You pair that with another strength of having Terry McLaurin. We went so many years with Terry McLaurin not having a quarterback to throw to him. We complained as fans that he just needed someone to get him the ball. And he finally got that last year, and he proved that he is wide receiver 1, as we all speculated. But, I mean, he had 14 receiving touchdowns in 2024. No other Washington player had ever had more than 12. So, I mean, he broke the franchise record with receiving touchdowns. No big surprise there. I mean, this is hard to say it's a strength, but we're looking at the bright side here. They have Brian Robinson, who ran between the tackles on over 2/3 of his carries last year, third highest rate among running backs with at least 100 carries. He was contacted behind the line of scrimmage at the 5th highest rate, 45% of his carries. Not good. And he managed to gain just the 6th fewest yards after contact per carry at just 2.7. What's good is that they were proactive and they go out and shore up that offensive line. They draft Josh Connerly. They go get Laramie Tunsil. They sign Nate Herbig. They're trying to get ahead of it and not just say, hey, we have Jaden Daniels, who's one of the best scrambling quarterbacks in the NFL. We're going to rely on that and spend our money elsewhere. They go ahead and shore up that offensive line, or at least attempt to, going into 2025. Like I said, the weaponry. I mean, they had almost an even run-pass split last year compared to a 36 to 64% run-pass split in 2023. They ranked 3rd in rush yards last year with 25 touchdowns and 19 runs of 20 or more yards. 5 yards per carry. That is greatly skewed to the fact that Jaden Daniels ran the ball a ton. He had the rib injury. Not the best build for someone who is running the ball as much as he did last year. Brian Robinson had the injury from the gunshot wound coming into the season. He had a productive final 11 weeks, I would say. So, I mean, he kind of improved, and then his season ended with the Week 18 injury. Austin Eckler was not what he was in Los Angeles. And that's kind of one of the things that worries me in this run game. They did improve the offensive line, so hopefully the run game can improve as well. Because Austin Eckler is not it for sure. Cliff Kingsbury, definitely a resurgence in Washington. The media, myself included, did not think he was going to be anything great or anything better than what he was in Arizona in his first year in Washington. He always peaked in the first quarter of the season, and then it was always downhill thereafter. But he proved us all wrong last year. They led the league. Washington led the league in no-huddle snaps last year, 677. Oh, let's see. So like I said, Cliff Kingsbury, the resurgence of him is happening in Washington. That initial peak at the beginning of the season is no longer a thing. I feel like he's going to be great for the entirety of the season going forward. Like I said, the Washington Commanders led the NFL in no-huddle snaps at 677. Second most were the Eagles at 274. That's 400 more snaps than second place in a no-huddle situation. They were 4th in EPA per play. They were 5th in EPA per pass. They were 1st in EPA per rush. Again, greatly skewed by the fact that Jaden Daniels was your quarterback and he was scrambling like crazy more than he should have. They had 67 explosive runs. That's runs that are 10 or more yards. That was the 5th most in the NFL. They had the highest success rate on the ground at almost 50%. Jaden Daniels, like I said, was the biggest skewer of these run game numbers. He had a positive 67 total EPA on the ground. Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson had a minus 14 total EPA on the ground. So Jaden Daniels was the run game in 2024. You want to see more explosiveness out of your running backs versus your quarterback. Debo will probably be used so much as an extension of the run game. I'm going to expect to see a lot of swing passes out of the backfield, use him in so many different packages to get him the ball and get him going in the run game. Another strength is leadership on defense with Bobby Wagner. Frankie Louvu, I didn't have that in my notes, but Frankie Louvu is definitely a strength for this Washington Commanders team. Weaknesses. They have more weaknesses, I'd say, than the Denver Broncos, but their strengths are better than I don't know, this offense can just carry them at any given time, just like as the defense on Denver. You could flip these teams for sure. Up front is a weakness. I really wanted them to address that front four way more than what they did last year. They had the fifth fewest quarterback pressures in the NFL at 190. And they blitzed the sixth most. Dan Quinn's going to blitz. They blitzed a ton and still could not get to the quarterback. They're definitely going to have to be creative on this defensive side of the ball to alleviate the issues that they have from the front four lacking production like they did last year. They were 12th in sacks, but that was blitzing. They lost Jonathan Allen. You're hoping Newton can come in his second year, comes back from the injury, and can really excel on this defensive side of the ball. Dante Fowler led them in sacks last year. Frankie Louvu was second. Louvu was just used all over the field. And then no one else had no more than 5 sacks. This defensive line was not great. Weakness, secondary, you could say. They bring in Trey Amos. Is he just going to be put on an island? That's what worries me in this secondary. It would be great if he comes in and is CB1 from day one, because they traded for Marshawn Lattimore, who looked like he was declining last year. The hamstring just never gets better. You need the front seven to have high production to take the pressure off of the secondary. I just don't know if it's going to happen. It's a lot to ask for sure. They were bottom 4th in EPA allowed per pass play last year. It's just they drafted Mike Sainristil. He did improve on the back end of the season. He allowed 7.1 yards per target as the nearest defender from the week 14 bye that they had, which was 1.3 yards per target lower than before the bye. So maybe we have some improvement from that defensive front. The secondary. You think the Commanders and Terry McLaurin will agree on a contract extension before or during camp? I would say they get it done before the season for sure, because there's already the rumors going around that he could be a trade target for the Buffalo Bills, which would be very intriguing to see. I think they get it done. I think they need to go ahead and lock him up. You don't want to put anger into the mind of your fans, nor your wide receiver one, who has been there through the lowest of lows in Washington. And, he's going to be their wide receiver one going forward. There's no one else on this depth chart. They can't lose him for sure. They want to probably put the trade speculation to bed early on. If they got one tomorrow, I would not be surprised for sure. He's going to be the focal point of this team going forward on the offense outside of Jaden Daniels. So, yeah. Agree. Take advantage of him while Jaden Daniels is on that rookie contract, which, they spent some of that money by going to get, they were paying the Laramie Tunsil contract. I'm kind of glad that they're doing what they are on the offensive line, not just, like I said earlier, waiting and assuming that Jaden Daniels can always scramble to alleviate the offensive line issues. It's good to see that these teams in the last, I'd say, 5 years have definitely taken advantage of being smart in the sense of, hey, our quarterback is great in his first year. We're not just going to fiddle around and see if they get better in year 2, year 3. They go ahead and they say, hey, we were in the NFC Championship last year. We're all in. Let's push the envelope, spend some money, see what we can do while our quarterback's on that rookie contract, because we know that we're going to pay him in just a few years. So let's get it while the getting's good. But yeah, so Mike Sainristil improved on the back end of that season. Like I said, week 14 on, he had 4 pass breakups, 3 interceptions. He only had 9 in weeks 1 through 13, so definitely improved on the back end. Hoping that he can continue to carry that over in season 2. Because they got Trey Amos. If they can get something out of him, Sainristil continue to be what he was, and then Lattimore can show anything like he did in New Orleans, then we're talking about a totally different season for the Washington Commanders in 2025. Because if this defense can be average, then we're seeing why they have the 6th best odds in the NFL to get to the Super Bowl. But on the flip side of that, defense could lose them games. They were surprisingly 16th in EPA allowed last year. They were just average in all aspects. But they did give up the 5th most explosive runs, 64, which is ridiculous for sure. The offensive line is a weakness. We've discussed them ad nauseum. I mean, Jaden Daniels took 47, which is the majority of the sacks. They were 18th in pass yards, almost 4,000, but the offensive line with the sacks was the issue. And I mean, think about how many more they would have had if they would have had a quarterback who just stands in the pocket and doesn't escape to the degree that Jaden Daniels does. Let's see. I haven't spoken on something. All right, let's go ahead and finish them up. Look at their cap situation. They have over $313 million committed, which is 7th most in the NFL. Top players that they owe this year: Deron Payne, who's still there, been there for season 7 now, 8. Terry McLaurin, Laramie Tunsil, Marshawn Lattimore, Frankie Louvu. $21 million in cap space. Who could they go get? I mean, I don't think they would, but Asante Samuel Jr. would be great. That would be amazing. I don't think there's really anyone else that they would go out and sign. I mean, at this point, just kind of save money and see what they're going to do. Dead cap, $14 million. Majority of that is between Jonathan Allen, Emmanuel Forbes, and Jahan Dotson. They have the 8th hardest schedule. Let's bring up their schedule here. They have the 8th hardest strength of schedule, 55% winning percentage. Week 1, they have New York Giants at home. They swept them last year. They've won 4 of the last 6. Week 2, Green Bay, Thursday Night Football in Green Bay. They will play 5 primetime games in 10 games, that are considered in a national window this year. They are 5-13-1 all-time in Green Bay. Their last win in Green Bay was in 1986, going on 40 years now. Week 3, they go back home to Las Vegas. Las Vegas was 2-7 on the road last year, so that should be a very winnable game. Week 4 at Atlanta. Week 5 at the Chargers. Week 6, Monday Night Football at home versus the Chicago Bears. Remember what happened last year on the Hail Mary. Sorry, not Fail Mary. Week 7 at Dallas. They've lost 6 of the last 8. Week 8, Monday Night Football at Kansas City. Going to be a big matchup. Week 9, another primetime game, Sunday Night Football at home versus Seattle. Week 10, Detroit. Week 11, international game versus Miami. Week 12, another late bye this year, which is good in my opinion. Week 13, play the team ranked below them on Sunday Night Football at home against Denver. Week 14 at Minnesota. Week 15 at the Giants. The last month of the season is going to be really key for this team. They finished the season with 4 consecutive NFC East games, 2 versus the Eagles in 3 weeks, and then playing the Giants and Dallas at home. If they need to make up ground, they definitely can at the back end of the season. I mean, 3 of these games will be against teams, including Minnesota, that made the postseason in 2024. And 2 of them against the champions in the Eagles. So we'll see what happens. Week 16, Philadelphia at home. Saquon averaged 138 yards per contest and scored 7 touchdowns versus the Commanders last year. So they need to do something to contain him this year. Week 17, Dallas. Week 18 against Philadelphia. These final 3 games will decide who wins the division. I know Philadelphia is favored, but they are looking to be the first team to repeat as NFC East champs since they won the division 4 straight times from 01 to 04. MVP odds for this team. Jaden Daniels, 5th best MVP odds in NFL, plus 750. He is plus 4,000 to be Offensive Player of the Year. No Defensive Player of the Year odds of note. No Offensive Rookie of the Year odds of note. I mean, Jalen Lane's not getting this. Trey Amos, plus 7,500 on defense, which is crazy. Dan Quinn, plus 3,500 as Coach of the Year. I mean, he wins the division. Those odds have to go way up. Most improved. They have areas of improvement for sure that are available in the likes of Deebo Samuel, the offensive line as a whole, and the secondary. Drop-off candidates, we hope we do not see a Jaden Daniels sophomore slump. X factor on his team, Johnny Newton. You know, going into his second year, he was injured at the end of last season or part of the season last year. He was disruptive at the end of the season. So I want to see him carry that over into season 2 and just show up to be somewhat better, because he was iffy versus the run last year, but give me something in the pass rush. Let's finish up the Washington Commanders here. So, there. Best case for the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels, top 5 quarterback in the NFL, in the MVP conversation, as he should be. And the offense just cannot be stopped. Sophomore slump is not a thing. Trey Amos is CB1 from day one. And you can just put him out there on an island and he can handle his own. Newton comes into his second year and shows out once he's healthy. Having a healthy season, the pass rush continues to be great like it was last year. The run game for him in the defensive sense is much improved. And Philadelphia can't do what they did last year. Saquon takes a step back, especially having over, 400 carries last year? And I mean, that's the simple case for the Commanders to be fighting for the division title in the NFC East. On the flip side of that, worst case scenario, sophomore slump for Jaden Daniels. The defense is still having issues here. There's a high floor for this offense, obviously, and they still probably get in as a wild card at 9. Realistic is the improved offensive line. They improved it proactively. Another weapon in the run game in Deebo Samuel, and their draft pick late in the 7th round. Cliff isn't the old Cliff. Jaden Daniels is around the same as last year. The defense is average. The offense is top 5. They're aggressive still on 4th down, after having the best 4th down of any team for a season in NFL history. And they finished probably around 11-6. It's just a question of if Philly takes a step back or continues to keep a foot on the pedal and just runs away with the division. But that's it for another week. We are now just 6 teams away from the top. So where are we at now? We are here. 6 teams left. Who do we have? The Bills, the Ravens, the Lions, the Rams, the Chiefs, and who am I missing? Lions, Chiefs, Rams. I don't know who I'm missing at this point. Find out next week, I suppose. Still here. Follow everything King NFL Stats on every social media platform. Do Media, Do Champions, who put all this on. Buffalo Bills inspired everything media company. That's the focal point. And if you're watching on the Do Champions channel, stick around to watch my boy Pat play some college football 26. Road to glory, I do believe. Until then, catch you next week where we do teams number 6 and number 5. Thanks for stopping.